Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on our podcast. His name is Todd Corsetti, and he's running for office under one of our beloved alternative parties. He's going to tell us more about his specific office he's running for and what he's all about. So welcome to the podcast, Todd.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. If we could get started by first you giving us the name of the party. Well, I said you're a Libertarian Party, with the name of the office that you're running for, and also a brief introduction to yourself, a background sketch.
Sure. So again, the name is Todd Corsetti. So I'm running as a Libertarian in Idaho for U.S. House Congressional District 2, which is basically the east side of Idaho. Idaho roughly has about 2 million people. So splitting it in half, we have two congressional districts. I'm running for the Congressional District 2. To get about 1 million people, split the population in half. It's all of eastern Idaho, and then a little finger that kind of goes into Boise area. So that's the district. And again, I'm running as a Libertarian. I currently live in Pocatello. I'm Pocatello, Idaho. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Amber. We have 5 children and 12 grandchildren. I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and I worked in the semiconductor industry for 30 years.
Okay.
2 different companies. I did an assignment in Israel, worked there for 6 months, and a couple years in Austin, Utah, and then in Idaho. I was Director of Operations and Site General Manager of the semiconductor factory here in Pocatello when I retired in 2018 at the age of 54. So, been here ever since.
Okay. How has your career experience informed your politics?
As an engineer, I just try to think of things logically and try to remove emotion as much as possible.
Okay.
And so that gives me, I think, really good troubleshooting skills.
Oh.
And I wasn't too much interested in politics. I mean, I was kind of, if you're old enough to remember, Ross Perot, who was from Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Got me interested in, there's independent party. And my parents were kind of Reaganites and always, my dad kind of don't trust the government philosophy. And then, Ron Paul kind of got on my radar when he ran as a Republican, and that's where Libertarian interest I started getting some interest there and getting my knowledge up to speed. But after I retired, I was just going to spend time with family or friends and do some traveling and stuff. But then the handful of these past years of just insanity. And so I think to your question, I started looking at what was being done by our government and trying to analyze the facts of what we were going through and, applying it without emotion, just a technical analysis. I'm like, wow,
Okay.
There's something seriously wrong. So then I started getting more involved in the Libertarian Party.
Okay, that's good. So you told us at the start of the program some about your district. You're saying that you said it's the eastern part of Idaho, right?
Right.
Okay. And then you said it includes part of Boise, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Idaho, you said, has 2 million people, and that makes it a very small state compared to the other ones. So is Idaho a very rural area, and also is it mostly white? What are the demographics that way?
It is fairly rural, a lot of agriculture, potatoes are our favorite thing.
Oh, sure.
Especially where I'm at and in the eastern side of the state. There's 3 main areas: Pocatello, Idaho Falls, Blackfoot, and I guess you could say Salmon. And then it extends over to like Sun Valley. It's fairly white, I would say. We have a lot of farms, and they employ a lot of workers. I think there's a lot of Hispanic people that work on the farms,
Okay.
that kind of thing. But it's fairly rural. Now,
Okay.
Boise, of course, is the biggest city in that area. It's pretty well developed.
Sure. So it's mostly white, yet with a significant Latino population.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So does the Idaho Libertarian Party have ballot access as a party, or do you have to gather signatures to get on the ballot for this race?
Yes, we have ballot access. We're required each election to keep 3 statewide candidates on, so we make sure we do that every year. But yeah, we have ballot access.
Okay, that's good. So you don't have to worry about that as part of your race. You can focus more on the race itself.
Yep.
Okay. Some of our interviewees don't want to talk about their opponents, yet others are comfortable talking about your opponents. So we would be interested in hearing about your opponents if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable, that's okay as well.
No, that's fine. So we have a primary election on the 21st, so just a week and a half away. I, as a libertarian, am running unopposed, so I really don't have to do too much, and I'm not getting too overly carried away with my campaign. I'm waiting to see what comes of the primary. So Idaho is a red state. Typically almost always goes Republican, except isolated like counties or cities. And there are 3 Republicans running
Oh,
in the primary, so I'm anxiously waiting to see who I'm going to run against. That will be the competition. I suspect the incumbent, Mike Simpson, has been in there for 25 years, I believe, and I suspect that will be who wins. Be interesting to see, and then I can go more aggressively on my campaign. And if it's Mike Simpson, he's been in there way too long. His voting record is pretty horrendous, and so that will make it interesting. But yeah, I'm anxiously waiting to see.
okay. So what are your platform planks for this race? What are the main issues that you're focusing on?
My 2 top priorities, I would say, are the government's never-ending cycle of war, which I can go into more detail, and its government's monetary and fiscal irresponsibility. I just think these are just absolutely existential risks that we're facing, and something we need to take action, and we need to do it fairly quickly.
Okay, so how do you propose that we stop the cycle of war?
So yeah, we just seem to be in this never-ending cycle of proxy wars and meddling with nuclear nations. The executive branch has too much power, and it independently is allowed to plunge us into these wars, and they just don't understand the issues, the long history, or even have realistic objectives of what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to get out. So the Constitution specifically requires that Congress declare war if absolutely necessary. The authority needs to be returned to Congress. The endless wars that the executive branch are getting us into are bankrupting the nation. They create humanitarian and immigration disasters, needlessly putting our military at risk. I'm for a strong military, but they should be only used for national defense, and frankly, they should be what we're witnessing. They should be home defending our border, not borders on a country that most people can't find on a map. And the one thing is that the military-industrial complex is alive and well and thriving, and that lobbying must be restrained. It's just a disaster.
Okay. So I take it that you are opposed to foreign aid for other countries, for whether they use it for military or for other purposes?
Yes. I think the state of our economics $35 trillion in debt, $1 trillion now a year of just interest alone, and it's just going exponential. We're broke. We're going bankrupt. I mean, economic reality is going to catch up to us at some point, and I just think it's one of the main reasons I decided to run is I just think it's putting our children and grandchildren at great risk, either from the wars or the economic situation, and I just couldn't remain silent. So
For sure.
I would stop all foreign aid. You know, they just approved $95 billion additional dollars for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan. It's just got to stop.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So the two issues you have are related because the military thing is in part a fiscal thing, so that relates to the fiscal aspect as well.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, as I mentioned, the $1 trillion a year interest on the debt has now surpassed the budget of defense. I mean,
Oh no.
it's pretty shocking.
Yes.
Yep.
So what would be your plan to reduce the debt and the deficit?
Well, there's several agencies I'd like to just end. If we can go
Okay.
a little controversial, but yeah, foreign aid has got to stop. We got to control the central bank, and the control of money that they have and the banking system overall. That's just the limitless money printing, the fractional reserve banking system. It's creating, I call it a stealth tax, but it's resulting in massive inflation, and we're experiencing it now. So we've got to get a handle on the money creation. We got to shrink government, and we got to we got to do better than even a balanced budget. We need to shrink the budget to get ahead of this debt. I think the numbers roughly, if we went back just to the 2019 budget versus our inflows today from taxes, et cetera, then I think we would have a balanced or even a balanced budget. So just got to start cutting, or economic reality is going to force us to. And if we're forced to at some point, then it's just going to be extremely painful, especially for our kids and grandkids.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So for the military, you're talking you want a strong military, yet we overuse it today. So generally, from the libertarian perspective, they avoid interventionist wars. I've seen rhetoric like such as defense only. So that's how you would see our military and how you want to use them, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Some people confuse not isolationism for a non-interventionism. A big difference. We want to maintain friendship with all nations and trade and
yes,
communication and et cetera. It doesn't have to be like this. So our military, I don't know how many couple hundred bases we have scattered across the globe. We are meddling in other countries' affairs that we really don't understand. We don't understand the culture. It puts our military at unnecessary risk. So I'm all for a strong defense, but these offensive wars and having our military spread thin, funding these proxy wars and supplying weapons to kill people that, again, we don't understand the history and the issues. So it needs to stop.
Okay.
It's not isolationism. It's just non-interventionism.
Okay. Sounds like a good distinction. So you're mentioning how you want the Congress to have more power in declaring war than the president, the executive branch, has been using in recent years. So how would you reassert congressional power? Would you have to pass another amendment, or would it be a law, or would it be merely Congress acting the way it should and not letting the president get away with it, checking the president?
Right. That's the last thing. I'm trying to think of the act that allowed the president to do this. Came about in at 9/11, I believe.
Yeah.
War Powers Act, I think that's what it's called. We need to get back to the Constitution. I mean, I'll come back to saying that. That's the highest law of the land. That requires, and it's very specific, it absolutely requires that if the U.S. is going to go to war, Congress has to declare it, not just the executive branch, just based on donors or based on misinformation or whatever, that they're being manipulated. It needs to stop the executive branch. It shouldn't have never been allowed to do this. It was only supposed to be for emergencies, but now we're always in an emergency. So,
Sure.
There may be a case where we legitimately have to go to war, but at the very least, then Congress needs to step up, do what they're intended, do what the Constitution requires, and then actually defend, approve or declare a war, and then defend it to their constituents that they're going to have to face at home when they make that decision.
Okay. That sounds like a good approach to things. So for your race, how are you getting the word out? What's your communication strategy for reaching the voters?
Yeah, so right now, I just did a radio interview the other day, but it's mainly social media.
Okay.
For now. I am on Twitter, X, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So that's where I'm staying fairly active. I mean, this podcast will help.
Sure.
I also got my website up, and, I did a press release, so I'm trying to get some momentum there, but I'm not getting too carried away until, like I'd mentioned, after the primary, so I can see who I'm specifically targeting, who I'm running against, and try to get the freedom and liberty ideas out to Idahoans so that, that they know we have an alternative to just the Republican Party, which just disappoints time and time again.
Yes.
So hopefully Idaho is ready for a change.
Yes. So when are the primaries exactly?
21st
So
of
they're
this
coming
month.
up very soon.
Yep. So I should know here in a week and a half. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. So are you running this campaign by yourself, or do you have a team assisting you?
Mostly by myself. I interact with the Libertarian Party of Idaho, and I'm endorsed by them.
Good.
And we also have an excellent Libertarian running for Congressional District 1, the west side of the state. So him and I exchange information and bounce ideas around. And then my brother is also a commercial artist, a marketing guy, and so he's really good. So he helped me design my logo and that kind of thing. So he's helping me on the visual aspects of it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. It's good to have your brother in that field that can come handy in political campaigning.
Yeah.
So, Sean, what have you learned from the voters as you've gone in this election? I'm sorry, not Sean, Todd. Todd, I don't know why I called you Sean. Todd.
It's funny. Usually people call me Scott for some reason. I look like Scott. I just think people are really fed up. And I think from what I hear and what I see and what I read that people, and there's a big white pill. You hear about the red and the white pill, but the trust in corporate media, which they call mainstream media, but I think it's more corporate media, is at an all-time low. People are kind of waking up to the propaganda, how the government is in bed with these corporate media and they're spinning information, either lies of omission or just spinning it. And so I think hopefully that, Idahoans are certainly waking up to that. I think the whole event over the last 5 years really woke a lot of people up to say, including I'd say myself, who really pushed me into getting more active on how how did that happen? How is the government this powerful? How could they, lock us in our homes, and just all the garbage that came out of that. I think they're realizing that, the Republicans and the Democrats are off the rails, but the Republicans are not shrinking government. They continue to fund foreign wars. They continue to grow the deficit and the debt. So they're not getting what they want. I don't want to, I lean that direction, but, they throw around the rhino term. And anymore, you look at it, the majority are what I would call rhinos. It's a feature, not a bug anymore. So I'm hoping that, now is the time for an alternative in Idaho. Also interestingly, we're trying to grow the Libertarian Party, and I think we have more influence now than we ever have. People are asking a lot of questions.
Okay.
We have some really good spokespeople out speaking on platforms like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly, it was just announced that there's a mixed feelings for this, but the chair of the National Libertarian Party invited Trump, Biden, and RFK to speak at the convention. The convention's the end of this month. And Trump and RFK both accepted, so they're going to speak. They're talking about potentially even a debate. So it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully it's a good showing. And also I just read that Vivek Ramaswamy is going to attend also. So it's going to be the most publicity we've ever got. It's a little tricky because you're inviting the opposition, but
sure,
they better come in strong with strong freedom and liberty-based plugs, or they're just going to get attacked. So good publicity either way. It's good publicity for the Libertarian Party, and I just think the country is starting to realize that the corrupt duopoly is not going to get us out of this mess, that we need some alternatives.
Sounds good. So, Todd, how can our audience support you and your campaign? Yeah,
so, Andrew, thanks again for the opportunity to discuss my positions. If anybody knows anybody in Idaho, or you're listening from Idaho, you can catch me on social media, Twitter, X, it's Corsetti 4 Idaho. Facebook is Corsetti 4 FOR Congress, and Instagram, Corsetti 4 with number Idaho. Please visit my webpage. It's toddcorsetti.com, TODDCORSETTI.com. All that information is also on there. If you can contact me by phone, by email, through social media, any support would be greatly appreciated. And like I mentioned, if everybody would spread the word that we have a liberty-based option in Idaho this year, an alternative to the corrupt duopoly, I would appreciate everybody's support.
Excellent. Todd, we thank you for coming on the podcast today. So we wish you all the best in your campaign, as well as everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Again, thanks for the time.
Of course. Take care and all the best.
Bye.